We're recording, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to start off right off the bat. I want to apologize to our viewers. Last episode, I had to check out to go to the washroom, and I was gone for a little while. I just want to say it's tough because it takes about 5 minutes just to wrestle that fat hog out of my jeans. I'm being serious, Randy. It takes at least 5 minutes just to wrestle that fat hog out of my jeans, let alone to drain that big-ass beaker. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum, but please bear with me. No, Randy, we're adults. You don't have to laugh about going to the washroom. We're adults. It's natural. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful part of life. It's nature. How was it sitting in Daddy's chair?
Seemed a little small.
Sometime I'd like you to sit in that chair while I'm still in it.
That's great.
How would you like that? How would you like to do this
I think
interview?
I think that's for a different type of podcast, Ryan.
How would you like to do that interview? What would Ben say if he
Both
we
of us
start the
sit in the
Skype
chair.
and he comes in and you're on my lap, and I'm just comfortably with my hands on your lap, and we go like that. Do you think he'll go with it, or do you think he'd say something?
Pretty sure that Skype call ends quickly.
2017, he might be like, I gotta go with this because I don't want to look like a bigot and act like I'm not game. He might. That's when you test. That's when we test. Did you vote Trump?
I have a feeling he cuts out and calls back thinking he got the wrong fucking thing. Right away. What kind of lift is this?
Or he sure as hell was hoping. Okay, so he's good to go.
Where's that piece of shit dog?
She rustles right on cue, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Oh,
Surprised that fatty can lift itself.
oh, she's such a sweet little thing.
It's like watching a sausage walk around with toothpicks.
Aren't God's children just lovely? The fuck am I talking about? Oh, just lovely. Just lovely. You know what? He sent a separate email with pictures. Some of them shirtless. I know you're gonna want those, so I'm gonna send those as well. Okay. Just be professional.
Oh shit.
You see me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Not bad. Ben, looks like you got to update your profile picture, sir. Who's that young man in your profile picture?
Oh shit, that's a long time ago. Another life, man.
Is that your son?
I'm sorry.
Is that Okay, so yeah, thanks for having on. We just I'm gonna set this up here. Are we already full screen, Randy?
No, go. That's full screen there.
Joe Banga, there you are. So it might look a little weird. Can you see my full face? Because I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So you see me, you don't see Randy, so if you hear somebody throwing in questions, that's Randy, and everybody else sees us all. We got studio lights in here now, so this bad boy's gonna be well lit. This is the first day for studio lights. That's special. Nice, that's right. We're breaking out the big guns for you, buddy. So
I do not have studio lighting. It's just
natural lighting, nice.
yeah.
Nice, buddy, nice. So we, we got your questionnaire back for the website, and you got some flipping good answers in there. You're well articulated, and you got some good stories as well. So we're gonna hit up on some of those, but I think we'll start with a bit of introduction. Like, the good thing about this is anybody who's watching, we post the shit out of you, so most people already know who you are. So especially the people that are watching, but just a quick break. Kind of recap on some of the titles you won for anybody who might not know, who's living in a cave under a rock somewhere.
So my biggest win this past year was at Boss of Bosses. That was in August. Yeah, Boss of Bosses 3. That was in California. Then I won the Texas State meet earlier for the USPA in April. And I did another local, just in Austin from USPF. So kind of all over in terms of federations. But yeah, 2016 was a good year for me. I'm hoping 2017 is too. In 2015, I came in second at USAPL Raw Nationals. and that was my first meet that I'd done in about 2 years. So,
And that you came in second. Who'd you come in second to? Was it Hack?
yes, yeah.
And you guys are going to face off again at the U.S. Open, no? Right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, the U.S. Open
The
is gonna be
rematch.
a big one for
A big one.
probably the only big one. And there's a lot of big names out there. I'm just excited to, be going back out to California, San Diego. Haven't been there in a while, so that'll be fun. A lot of big names. I got a lot of friends going. I want to mention Rob Paul. I'm really hoping he makes some noise in the 308. So I'm excited. It's gonna be a good weekend.
So you touch upon Boss of Bosses. Am I right? You won the best lifter?
Yeah, for sleeves.
And that is freaking huge because Boss of Bosses is where the beast. That's really the lion's den. That's the lion, Dan Green, inviting the other lions in. I mean, that's a crazy meet to win best lifter.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was really cool because I had lived in California for a year before Dan opened his gym there, and so it was cool to come back. And honestly, I live right down the street from where the meet took place, so it was cool.
And so when you live when you're in California, in Cali, were you? I just read though, and this is somewhat to do with powerlifting, but kind of intrigued. You worked at Google?
Yeah. So my undergrad degree was in finance, and so I worked in financial risk analysis for a couple years at Freddie Mac, and then got a job at Google doing the same thing, and moved out there to do it. And I mean, Google was great and all, but financial risk analysis, man.
I bet you that gets all the girls all hot and bothered when you bring that up. but the money was probably good.
The money was, oh man, I don't like to think about it now that I'm a grad student. But I don't even,
That's right.
not even to think about it.
It's water under the bridge. Is rumors true about Google? Like, are the hours and days crazy long?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, like even my fucking desk at Google was so much nicer than anything I had at home that you didn't really want to leave. Like the food was better. Like there was more stuff to do. They had more video games. So there was no real desire to leave. So you just stay all day.
Wow, dude,
that's how they get the most out of you.
What? So they get the kidding.
They have sleep pods and stuff where you guys can nap and everything. It's crazy there.
I'm a fan of the Fighter and the Kid podcast with and they were talking about Google and they said exactly that. But there are some people, I guess Google, some people get super duper stressed out because the days are long. It depends how long you're there, I guess, right? But it's definitely
for the single life, it's probably a little easier than the married life.
That's what it is. 100%. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and almost everybody there is super young. So I mean, I'm sure once you get older, have a family and stuff, you probably move on.
You got to do your thing, yeah. So were you powerlifting at the time?
No, not at all. Actually, I was I had started kind of dabbling in strongman before I moved out there, just the year before, and then at my second contest or something, I tore my bicep. Actually, training for the second contest, I was just being stupid. I was trying to flip tires that I had no business trying to flip, and so I was mostly rehabbing when I was out there, and I trained at a powerlifting gym. I trained at Wild Iron in Santa Clara, but I was still trying to do strongman stuff. And I'm too small for strongman. I'm not good enough at the overhead stuff, so it just wasn't a good fit. But
so when did you start getting into lifting weights?
Oh, I started lifting when I was in high school, freshman high school for wrestling. And so after wrestling practice, we would have time for the team to lift, and that's how I kind of got into it. But I mean, I was better at lifting than I was at wrestling because I weighed. I wrestled 103 in my first 2 years, so I was tiny.
Holy smokes, 103!
Yeah.
You could probably arm curl that for a set of 10 right now.
But they had nobody else in the 103 class, so I wrestled varsity from day one. And
shit, that's insensitive. That's insensitive to cut to 103.
Yeah. So it was wrestling was tough, but I really liked the lifting part, and so just kind of stuck with that after.
Gotcha. And then you started competing about 5 years ago? 2020?
Yeah, my first real meet was a local one in November 2012 that I just did with some friends from the gym, and it went well. I kind of I really enjoyed it. Didn't really hit my goals. I think I wanted to hit like a 600 deadlift or something like that. But I did the year after that and did better than I expected, and then kind of really got into it and started getting more serious and stuff.
Was there anyone that got you into the sport? Like, was there anyone that kind of made you want to start?
Yeah, how'd you do that? How'd you find powerlifting and make that transition?
From strongman to powerlifting, when I moved to Austin, one of my good friends from back home was visiting because Raw Nationals that year was in Killeen. It was like the second weekend, and I didn't know what Raw Nationals was.
Mm-hmm.
I had totally out of touch with powerlifting. But she put me in touch with Jacob Cloud, who's been coaching me since, and he was like, "Look, man, you can go really far in this sport if you want to." He's like, just kind of trying to nudge me away from strongman, where didn't really have much of a future. You're not gonna, as a under 175 strongman, they don't get much.
yeah.
So he was really the one that got me to make that switch.
And did you start like in terms of initially? So you do your own programming now. Did you always do your own programming?
No, Jacob did mine for quite a while. And then after that, he's recently had a child, and I've, gotten more into my studies, like actually trying at school and stuff. And so, we just kind of gradually transitioned. And so we still, work out a lot together and keep in touch. But I've been doing most of my own programming for a couple of years now.
And what kind of style of programming do you do? RPE, especially when you're doing your own, or do you do a percentage based or?
I like to. So first of all, before I started lifting, even when I was doing strongman, I was very much like low volume. Like I would do one set all out, and that'd be it. And so when I came to powerlifting, that was kind of had to adjust to training with more volume, so you don't kill yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my background. I'm kind of biased towards low volume, but I do prefer to have kind of a percentage in mind so that I know roughly what weights I should be working with, and then I'll use kind of my RPE on top of that to make smaller, more nuanced adjustments during the actual workout.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you use a percentage, but if it feels a little heavy, you could back off. Feels a little light, you could add on to it, type deal.
Exactly, yeah.
And do you do a lot of partial work in terms of whether squat, bench, dead, or just for specific lifts?
I do some partial work for bench press. Board press has really helped me. My problem is that I need the 1.5 board to really hit that spot for me. And, most gyms don't have a 1.5 board hanging around. So I've been like duct taping newspapers to boards and stuff. But
No shit.
for deadlifts, I don't really like partial stuff. I feel like I have a difficult time getting in the right position, even if I'm doing block pulls, but like definitely rack pulls. So if I'm trying to do something like that, I'll just do a reverse band, for the overload. And yeah, for squat, I've never really tried partial work. I think some people like it. I think I would definitely, benefit from heavy walkouts even. Mm-hmm. Just kind of work on that core strength, but haven't incorporated a lot of it.
And you do a lot of beltless work, I noticed.
Yeah, so the beltless work started out because I thought my core was weak, which it was, and I felt like I needed to improve that, and that I would still get the same amount out of my belt that I used to. Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely benefited from the extra core work from doing all the beltless stuff, but now I just get less out of my belt. So it didn't really improve my top end strength all that much. And I'll just be straight up honest, like, the beltless stuff gets a lot more love on Instagram than
I was gonna say, you also do a lot of shirtless.
Yeah.
Hey, if I look like you, I go to the grocery store shirtless, man. I mean, shit, you're bodied up. Good on you. So do you wear a belt for like bench or like how often do you wear your belt?
I don't wear my belt for bench. I used to, up until a few months ago, and then just kind of realized that it wasn't helping all that much. And now I actually feel like it kind of takes away from my ability to get my upper body in the position that I want. Mm-hmm. I've started wearing the belt even from set 1 so that I can get more practice with the bracing with the belt. It's just a little bit different than bracing without a belt. Mm-hmm. And I feel like just wearing that for every set seems to help me ingrain that a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Then I'll throw in some beltless stuff after so that I can keep, that core strength.
Yeah.
So one of the things I found interesting in the interview questions is when we asked an interesting fact that most people didn't know about you. Do you remember your reply for that one?
Nope, not at all.
3 testicles. That's what you said. That caught my attention. This is a man right here.
About being a doctoral student.
Oh, yeah.
So when I left Google, it was to start a PhD program at the University of Texas. So I was just, I wasn't really liking the financial risk analysis, wasn't doing it for me. So I was just looking at, programs that I could go back to school that looked like they would be something that interested me. And I found my advisor's biography. My advisor's Jan Todd. She was one of the very first female powerlifters. She was in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's strongest woman. Has all these titles. She runs the Arnold Pro Strongman show with her husband Terry. So I just sent her an email, kind of explaining who I was, why I was interested in the program, and she really, she's pushed me since day one to just kind of put myself out there to. First of all, join the program, and then to continue both competing and to push the academic angle as well. And I feel like I've really benefited from having both of kind of those viewpoints. And, being around kinesiology students all the time, even though my program has nothing to do with kinesiology, really is in terms of exercise science or anything like that, being around those types of people that can give you that great feedback and have, more knowledge of anatomy and physiology and all that stuff really...
So you think that's kind of a bit of your secret weapon in terms of designing your own programs?
I don't know if I would call it a secret weapon, but it's definitely helped me as an individual to kind of grow and have more open mind when it comes to training and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So what's some of the advices you would give in terms of perfecting, like, your favorite lift is a deadlift, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What would be some of the advice you would give? I mean, we had asked you as well in the survey for people who want to improve their deadlift. I know anyone watching, often they want some tips. What's some tips you would give?
So first of all, I want to say I'm probably one of the worst people to ask about improving the deadlift because it comes really naturally to me, right? So I don't have to think about it that much.
That's a good intro.
You're probably better off finding somebody who struggled with their deadlift and improved it a lot. But that said, the biggest things for me, first of all, was improving my technique and not just, using the lower back to get it off the floor. And that's really easy because if you do that, you let yourself get in that position, the weights feel real light off the floor, and then you're like, oh, shoot, I can do a lot more.
Yeah.
But you hit that sticking point, you just can't muscle through it. So improving my technique really helped there, and then incorporating sumo into my programs has really helped because I feel like even though my strength in sumo and conventional is pretty similar, sumo is a lot easier to recover from, and they're both kind of subtly different, right? The conventional puts a little bit more emphasis on the low back. Sumo's can put a little bit more emphasis on the glutes and hamstrings, and so when you do both, they can kind of complement each other really well. So those were the two biggest things that have really helped.
Why do you feel like, for anyone who's trying to choose between sumo and conventional, because you could do both, and actually switch hitting, so to speak, isn't overly common in powerlifting. I know for myself, my sumo, like, I got small legs genetically. I'm that dude. Like, any guys with, like, small calves and hate guys with big calves. I'm that dude. Like, my legs are small. My sumo is terrible. I think my girl will outlift me sumo. Big time conventional lifter. Like, would it be worth my while to still pull sumo regardless?
I think you could put it in as kind of like a super light accessory. I mean, personally, I always try to use accessories. I'll either have accessories that I'm doing super heavy or super light. I don't really like kind of those mid-range ones.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be a great light accessory that's not really going to eat into your recovery at all because you're not pulling that much, but it's still going to force you to use those other muscles that maybe you're not recruiting to their maximum on your conventional pull.
Mm-hmm. And why do you feel it is that you can pull both so closely? Is there like a levers in terms of your body that accommodate like that?
Yeah, I think if you have the right body type for pulling, you're probably going to be good at both. I mean, you can look at Yuri Belkin, who in my opinion is the best lifter out there right now.
Yeah.
Obviously his sumo's ahead, but he has a ridiculous conventional pull too. So I think that's pretty typical of people who are built for it.
We were looking for 3 testicles was the answer. But
yeah. that helps with the lift stuff. So,
right. So in terms of what is one of the lifts that you did struggle with and that you made some breakthroughs with?
So I've struggled with both the squat and the bench. I wouldn't say that I've made any breakthroughs in the bench, but for the squat, learning to brace properly really made a huge difference for me because didn't feel like I was fighting my body as much because I'm, lower back dominant, so I tend to sit back a lot in the squat.
Yeah.
If you do that and you're not bracing properly, it is really, really hard to stand up from that position where you've got a lot of forward lean. And so learning to brace made just incredible difference in that.
In terms of bracing, what did you do in terms of bracing? Was that the breathing and the bracing of the abs, or?
Yeah, so there's a couple of videos out there that are really great. I think Chad Wesley Smith has a great one, has my favorite one about breathing and bracing. And Chris Duffin has a good one too. But I actually had a friend, Dominic Moraes, who's a fellow doctoral student. He actually graduated. He's now a professor at Trinity University in San Antonio. But he had me do just an exercise where kind of in the quadruped position, pushing a Swiss ball against the wall with your butt. And putting yourself in that position will almost naturally force you to keep a tight neutral thoracic spine and also keep your lower core braced as well. And so once you get that position, once you can feel that position, for me, it's pretty easy to translate into other movements.
So you put like a Bosu ball, like one of those bad boys,
Yeah.
and you put it against the wall, put your butt against it, and the way you maintain it against the wall is how you should be kind of in the squat?
Yes.
Is that what? Yeah. Oh, no shit. I never even tried that. That's something I might think about. Huh. And in terms of the bench press, any kind of tips in terms of the bracing and setup with that?
I haven't really figured out how to really engage my abs properly on bench. I've been trying a lot of different things. The big ones that have seemed to help me is instead of trying to just arch, right, which is the usual cue, just arch your back.
Yeah.
To me, that ends up doing a lot of lower back arching, which isn't helping at all. Trying to arch my thoracic spine. In contrast, that's what really pushes your chest up and towards range of motion. And so that's been the biggest or most helpful thing in that regard.
You know what? I mean, it's funny you say it, because like how often I feel it too, where you're in a competition and you bench and holy smokes, is my lower back sometimes tighten right the hell up. You got a deadlift next, and I'm like, man, I don't know if it's just like I'm not arching properly, or I don't know if you got a long back, it's more difficult. Obviously, different levers, but do you find so? Do you think maybe wearing a belt will help, or do you think if the arch isn't on, it's just not on?
I haven't found a belt help. I've actually heard that if you get a bench belt, that's a little bit thinner, it can help.
Yeah.
You still get some of the support, but it doesn't affect your flexibility. But personally, I haven't noticed a difference one way or the other. Belt doesn't seem to take away a whole lot, but also doesn't seem to add much.
So what kind of rep ranges do you work with when you're in training? If we were to look kind of like a bigger scope, maybe even in phases, if you don't mind. I don't know how many secrets you want to give, but in terms of like the volume phase, do you taper it down, and as you get closer to a meet, towards the deload?
So usually I'll only do high reps, like over 6 reps, if I'm coming off a meet or taking a break, like in a deload or something. That's when I feel like those can be more helpful. To me, I spent a long time before I started powerlifting sticking to the super high rep ranges between 10 and 20 and really didn't gain much strength from those. And so I don't know if it's just that I kind of exhausted that potential then or what, but I haven't noticed a lot of benefits from higher rep training. Mm-hmm. So the vast majority of my training is in between 2 to 6 rep ranges. I don't like doing singles. I know like Mike T and some other guys like light singles where you're kind of in the RPE 8 range.
Yeah.
I've never actually tried implementing those. But I think if you're doing singles where you have the risk of missing, that's kind of questionable.
For your mind, mentally, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I try and stick to the 2 to 6 rep range, and within that rep range, I'll fluctuate. Fluctuate's not the right word. I'll just choose different rep ranges based on how I feel that day. Mm-hmm. I think the more important thing is the total volume that you're getting. So the number of sets times the number of reps with the given weight. So if I'm doing 2 sets of 6 doing 1 set of 6 is just about as demanding as doing 2 sets of 3 if they're relatively equally heavy. Mm-hmm. Did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, for sure it does. Yeah. And how do you decide your rep ranges? Like ahead of time or that day? Do you or?
What's worked best for me is kind of a cyclical approach where you're using going in 3-week blocks and then going through sets of 5s, and then I like to do 2s the next week and 3s the last week. And that seems to work really well for me. Usually I'll do 2 blocks of that and then a deload, maybe 3 blocks. And then I totally base my deloads on feel. I don't like having deloads at all. So that's kind of the
Do you deload? So you deload maybe, like, how often would you put in a deload? Is it kind of like every 3-4 weeks, or?
It really depends on how I'm feeling. So right now, I just started U.S. Open prep a couple weeks ago. I'm already feeling run down. It's only been 3 weeks.
Oh,
so
shit.
Let's take a deload so that I have another 3 weeks before I have to deload for the meet.
Yeah.
That's, pretty unusual for me. I would say typically it's every 6 to 8 weeks I feel like I need one. But I'm also typically not pushing it over 90% every day. So
Yeah. And do you feel a little bit of pressure with this being U.S. Open to push it a little harder?
it's always a little bit of pressure because it's a bigger stage and more people are watching, more people pay attention.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, absolutely. In terms of the U.S. Open, the people are going to be there. I like competition. I really like competition, actually, the adrenaline rush and all that stuff. And so I try to be mindful of that and be like, look, you got to train the way that's going to be productive for you, not train because you're thinking about your competition or thinking of how good you want to look on stage or any of that stuff. So I won't lie. Sometimes it'll be, because we talked about how if I'm feeling good, I'll up the weights a little bit on train day. I definitely do that sometimes, but I try to avoid it.
And walking into this, I mean, this is me and Randy talk about. This is like the Super Bowl of powerlifting in terms of we've never seen 40K on the table before in powerlifting, and that's a game changer. I mean, 40K right now. How much would 40K impact your life? So walking into like anybody. So walking into this, me and Randy love asking this question. We asked John Hack as well. Who's going to be handling you? And holy smokes, the type of flipping pressure it is in terms of your attempts. Like literally handling when 40K is on the table. Let's just say if someone asked me to handle them and there's 40K on the table, I'd be like, A, holy flipping, that's a lot of pressure, right, to pick it right. B, if you win and I handled you to that shit, maybe 5K my way. Right? It's gonna be, you know what I mean? Like handling is starting to become. Randy used this analogy, when there's money involved like this, a good handler could end up being like a caddy on a golf course. If he actually could pull you back a little, keep his eye on the prize, because some lifters, I'm throwing a lot of questions all at once, so maybe we could review my questions here, but do you view where you're at in the rankings, or do you like your handler just to take over? And how are you going to approach the U.S. Open? If that's the case, and there's 40K, are you going to be like, I want to be more hands-on with my handling? Or are you like, hey, fuck, you take the wheel and drive, but that's putting a lot of pressure on somebody else?
So Jacob's going to be handling me. Like I mentioned, I talked about Jacob earlier. So he's been training with me since day one. He probably has a better idea of what I'm capable of on a given day than I do. So we're going to talk about this stuff ahead of time before we even go out to California. What we're thinking, what numbers we'd like to hit, what we think I'm capable of on a bad day, on a good day. But then day of, he's going to be 100% in charge. I'll sign all the slips before I take any of the temps, and he'll just call them home. And I won't even have to think about it, which is much how I prefer it.
Yeah.
So.
Do you even look at? Sorry, Randy. Go.
I was going to say, but that's kind of key though, because you see some people are going to go in handling with handlers that don't know them, and like you said, you have somebody that's been here since day one, and they probably do know you better.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you come out and say I don't feel it today, they're going to look at you and say that's moving quick. You feel it today.
Yeah.
You're going.
Exactly.
You may be getting squashed out there, but you're hammering numbers. Or you could be overshooting it, and they're there to say, you know what? No, you don't have it in
Easy
you
young
today.
man. Yeah.
That's 100% right.
So will you keep attention in terms of A, where you're at in the rankings, and B, what will be on the bar? Or are you just like, I want to turn the blinders and not even know? Because some people, to amp themselves up, want to know what's on the bar at least. Or are you going to be like, dude, don't even tell me?
I'm not sure if I want to know what's on my bar, but I won't pay attention to anybody else till deadlift. Once it's deadlift, because I feel really confident in that lift, then I kind of like that for the adrenaline rush, knowing what I have to hit, knowing that, I'm feeling confident that I can hit it. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for squat and bench, it'll just be blinders to everybody else. I'll probably want to know what my third attempt is ahead of time, so I can kind of get my mindset for that. But that's about it.
That's a crazy amount of trust with 40K on the table, and that's going to be a really uncomfortable car ride back if he misattempted. You're like, dude, what are you thinking?
And you mentioned it would be a lot of pressure for somebody, calling the attempts. Shoot, man, it'd be a lot more pressure if I had to worry about my own attempts.
This is
true.
true.
A lot of pressure on myself to make lifts. So
This is true. So has he had that conversation with you about the 40K and be like, hey, shit, man, I don't like. Is he totally cool taking that kind of pressure on? That's a big ask. I'd be nervous as shit.
no, that was as soon as Gracie started talking about the U.S. Open. He's like, hey, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna handle you. I was like, okay.
And when you get that 40K check, is he gonna be like, what's going
Well,
on?
I feel like we split Boss of Bosses 50-50. So
Okay. 50-50's 20K though, Ben.
well, yeah. So we haven't talked about the
Yeah. Okay, talk about it first, man.
We'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that before.
You might have to lawyer up for that talk, man. It's getting real. It's getting real money now. So is it? It's kind of exciting to look at powerlifting moving in this direction. But do you think there's going to be more cash prizes in the USAPA? USPA there is more cash prizes, correct?
USPA definitely has more cash prizes. Even locals, you can win $1,000 or more, which is great.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
And I would love it if there was more money in powerlifting. I think it would be a good thing for the sport because people are already pushing themselves to extremes. You can't really use that as an argument that money's not a good thing for the sport. It's just going to get more exposure.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at strongman, which has a lot of money in a lot of those competitions, it's those people seem to get a lot more recognition than some of the top
100%.
power.
It's funny you brought up strongman. Nothing me and Rainey were talking about is like, so initially people would ask like Eddie Hall, for instance, like, why don't you try powerlifting, break this record, that record, whatever. And he'd be like, look, there's no money in powerlifting. I'm on tour with strongman. But 40K US, and I emphasize US, we're in Canada, so 40K US is like $1 million Canadian. I don't know if you know the conversion. But 40K US, you're gonna have you could potentially have some big name dudes. Like if you're Brian Shaw and you're in the US, he's already in the US. Why wouldn't he just take a little trip down to California, grab 40K?
Absolutely, because I don't remember the exact breakdown of the prizes of Arnold, but I'm thinking that it was in the range of 100, 150 for winning the Arnold. But there's only one Arnold a year, and so if you all these powerlifting meets that you could drop in on too, I sure would.
The biggest, and Arnold is like there's the World's Strongest Man, and then there's the Arnold Classic. So if like one or second biggest is 150K, 40K is nothing to scoff at for these guys.
Well, we talked about it before. I truly believe if you start seeing a lot more money prizes, you're going to see a lot more athletes coming out of the woodwork.
Absolutely,
like you got football players that didn't make it to the NFL. You got a lot of people that
who never would have thought about it.
I mean, these NFL players, guarantee you they're on strength programs, squatting and deadlifting every damn day, but they make a lot more money, so they'll never step into a meet and risk it. But some of these guys, these college guys that didn't make it, you might see some big boys coming out of the woodwork.
There's some freak athletes. Well, here's one thing with and you'll know because you started in 2012. So once once there was a lot more raw around 2013 range, the sport boom goes the dynamite, and the talent pool has exploded. Like there was, not to take away anything from people competing in like the 90s, early 2000s or whatever, but it wasn't nearly the same. You show up at a competition, there might be a guy in your weight class, there might not. Even at a national level, there's a bigger population in the US, but the amount of depth in terms of talent wasn't there. But now, it's like everywhere. Everywhere there's, like you go to a gym, there's a time when you go to the gym, people don't even know what powerlifting is. Now you go to a gym, there's at least a couple powerlifters in the room. Right, so that's only going to increase.
And so I'm going to plug myself real quick. Talking about my schoolwork. Me, my advisor Jan Todd, and Dominic Mores, who I've already mentioned a little bit earlier, we wrote an academic paper about that was published last year. That's called Shifting Gear. So if anybody's interested, they can Google my name and that Shifting Gear, and you can read it. It's a little bit dry because it is academic, but if you're really interested in the topic, it gives a nice historical perspective on how that happened.
In terms of shifting gear, in terms of would that be about athletes shifting from one sport to another?
No, from going from equipped to raw or vice versa.
I like to play on words, sir. Nicely played. Shifting
that
gear.
wasn't me, but
I was gonna say I got you. Okay. So I mean, we've seen that kind of explosion. Where do you see really the sport going? Do you think it's gonna continue, especially with cash prizes like this, or do you think it's a possibility people are going to look back, and this will be the golden era when we have 40K in the table, all this kind of talent. It really feels like this is, in terms of the biggest time for like amount of quality coaches, amount of quality athletes. Is this bad boy going to keep growing, or are we now in the biggest this bubble's going to get?
You know, it's really hard to say because 40K, as far as I know, that's the biggest prize, or I guess the total is 170 or something. That's the most prize money that's ever been offered at a contest, as far as I know. But when you're talking golden age, if you look back at like the 80s, I think, you had meets that were sponsored by Budweiser, meets that were broadcast on, major networks.
Yeah.
Announcers, like, and so it's hard to say that, we're already in another golden age. And so, I don't really know the answer to the question. I think that Raw, like you said, has definitely helped. And some people say that, it's just going to continue to grow. Other people say that once these Raw lifters start to dabble and equip, there'll be more going over there. I don't really know, to be honest. I'm kind of excited either way. I think that the sport seems to be getting bigger, and that's awesome. And I'd like to see that continue. But, doing all this history stuff, it makes it really hard to then start thinking about predicting the future when you're like, man, I have a hard time explaining the past.
What do you think social media has for an effect on this right now?
Social media has definitely seemed to have a huge effect on fitness in general. I mean, that's one of the big things that Instagram in particular, with the focus on photographs and kind of appearance, has really brought a lot of attention, I think, to a lot of different, not just strength sports, but also, CrossFit and kind of related stuff. And that's kind of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you're getting more people involved in the sport, which is awesome, and in the sports, which is awesome. But then you're also getting people who are really doing it because they feel they need to look a certain way or feel they need to meet a certain standard. And I'm not a huge fan of that. So it's kind of, you have to be a very mindful user of social media, I think, if you want to get the most out of it.
If you could change anything on the sport right now, what would it be?
I feel like there's, with regard to social media, there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of egos that get wrapped up in this stuff. And it's just, to me, it seems very detrimental. I think one of the best things about powerlifting, which probably isn't unique to powerlifting, it's probably something I think that you can see in a lot of smaller sports, but it's how supportive the culture is. I mean, I always think back to, I forget which meet it was, but Ellis McLean was cheering on Lane Norton as Lane pulls his final deadlift.
Arnold Classic, yeah.
And Ellis is going to lose if he makes this lift, and he's cheering him on because, he wants everybody to do better. And Ellis is an awesome guy. I love him.
Yeah.
That's really a big part of what makes the sport, how supportive everyone is. And so the more you get into this negativity, which to me seems to come out more on social media when people feel like they're more anonymous, that seems to really take a lot away from it.
What's funny on our end is what we find is as we do more and more of these interviews is a humility. Like what people see
from the established guys like Ben and the champions. Like LS, we had LS on last week.
What you see through the Instagram, you see these guys, you see men and women. I mean, and sometimes you're just going by what you see, and then we get you guys on interviews, and the humility is unbelievable through the different lifters.
It's usually. Like, if you're attacking people online, you're probably a little insecure. How many times we post, like we do, like that's our basis is repost. How many times we post and people are going at some of these girls because, like, oh, bad form on deadlift. Dude, she's a world record breaker. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
the arch bench just goes
arch bench drives
viral.
People nuts. I posted for a comedy, but like people get so negative and picking people apart online. It's like, man, like, are these people even competing? It's tough when you're especially with a deadlift. If you're going max load, sometimes the wheels fall off, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, part of that reason is because if you're doing this to feed your ego or whatever, I don't think that's as much of a motivation thing as it is if you're doing it because you love it, right?
Yeah,
and that's a big difference when it comes down to it, to get in there day in and day out because you really enjoy it versus because you feel like you need to puff yourself up or something.
Well, most of the keyboard heroes don't even have, like, you can't even see their stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Like, those are the best ones that you see on there, so.
Very true. Now, just go back to the U.S. Open, a couple questions I would ask you there. Who are some of the guys, we had some of the guys who were going to be in the U.S. Open, like Moreno,
John
Hack. Who are some of the guys that you're kind of focusing on? You're anticipating a showdown with that you kind of keep your eye on.
So I'm really only looking at the 181s, even though I know it's like for the money, it's based on best lifter, so it's by Wilkes. But I'm mostly looking at all the 181 guys and trying to just see where they're at training, more or less. Like, you can never know what's going to happen the day of, which is the problem. True. Like, training is so much different than a meet that you only get so much data. And at the end of the day, you can only do your best no matter what. And so I try and be aware of what other people are doing, kind of mostly so that I can pick my openers better. Because I think picking your openers they're not important in terms of your total, but they're important in terms of setting you up for the day mentally. And so that's kind of the attitude that I try to take, more or less. But I mean, I like watching people lift. So I know Anthony at the cage put up some crazy total in like 60 seconds or something. Because Rob was there too, and he did 2,000, I think, in 60 seconds. I forget what Anthony did, but he's a beast. Hack definitely. And shoot, I'm not good with names, so I don't really remember all the other guys, but it's gonna be exciting, and that's kind of the attitude that I try to have, is that, like, just the fact that you're gonna be up there and have the chance is really cool. So,
well, it's truly the best of the best that are going out there. So that's what's interesting to see. And personally, I think some people, there's going to be some big ego misses, and then there's going to be some who goes 9 for 9 wins this thing. Like,
it's whenever it's super tight a race, and this is going to be super tight. Like, sometimes if the field of depth in terms of competition isn't really thick, you can have a runaway winner. Okay, but when it's super tight, like this is going to be, everybody's been invited. You miss a third squat, and you have to go off your second squat towards your total. It'll be one of those deals where, like, dude, I don't know if you're going to be able to pull enough, like, whoever it is, right? Or if you missed your third dead, it's like, well, obviously your third dead, it's already over, but it's literally going to be, if you misjudge, that's why, and with 40K on the table, it'll be one of those deals. It'll be interesting to see when it comes down to the deadlift event, the very last event, if people like, I'm going for broke, going really heavy, or some people like, you know what, I think some of these dudes are going to overshoot for that 40K. I'm going to try to beat your second.
I think it's a game plan. The game plan, whoever has the best game plan going in is going to win this thing. Like,
and stays realistic.
And stays to the game plan.
Some people, day of, throw on like 20 more K than they do in the gym. And it's those guys who are like, I know when I hit the platform, I lift way more. It's going to be harder for them to judge.
Yeah.
It's totally true. Totally true. And the other thing is, in the gym, like, there's not much downside to missing a lift. You can just try it again. Versus everything's on the line. But at the same time, like, it makes it so much more exciting. And I'm honestly, I know Gracie had good reasons for switching the schedule around and everything, but I'm pretty disappointed that the lightweight guys are lifting on Sunday instead of Saturday. Because now I'm going to have to be thinking about lifting on Saturday when all the heavyweight guys are going, instead of just chilling and enjoying watching them smash weight. So, catch the videos on YouTube or something.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, it's tough to miss. So, I mean, this is going to be everyone's, because the situation is what it is, that kind of money on the table. When it comes to the deadlift event, everybody's going to be paying attention like, holy shit. Like, here we go. The third attempts in every weight class are going to be a phenomenal. Guys are going to pull, and it's going to be a scrap. And some guys are going to shoot a little too high. Some guys are going to be like, you know what? I don't think he's got that in him. And if I try to chase that, that's chasing bad money. I'm going to try to go just below because I don't think he's got that in him. You can have a guy, you could coax a guy into chasing too high. Right? You can be. It's true. So it's going to be interesting to see how.
But that's where we go back to having a good handler too. I mean, these are the things,
very much
like a lot of guys. Well, not a lot of them, but some of them have their wives handling some of them. But I mean, when you have a caddy in golf, they do a lot of things to make you better at what you do, and having a handler that maybe writes down a false attempt. You know what I mean?
And switch it. You can switch your last minute
because
yes, you do, because it fucks with people.
Because now you can see how many people, you can drop 20 kilos today. Like it's going to be who's the smartest guy out there. Yeah. Man or woman. Like
for everybody all around.
Honestly, it can work. kind of the other way around too. I know at Boss of Bosses, I was pretty nervous on my first squat. I wasn't really nervous until it's time to get out there on the platform, but I cut it high. And Jacob almost never calls higher lifts after a miss, right? He always retakes the lift. And he's like, look, man, that was easy. You can do it. You're just nervous. And so he calls a higher weight, just a little bit higher, but to just show that, he's confident in me and stuff. And that really helped. That made a big difference. So, yeah, there's a lot you can do with calling your attempts in terms of, I don't want to use the word manipulating, but kind of setting either yourself up for a good day or setting somebody else up to miss. Yeah, it's definitely a big problem.
It's interesting you say that. Like, if that happened at Boss of Bosses, that's a fucking big meet. But let's say that happens at the U.S. Open, 40K on the table, and you're like, oh shit. It's one of those, like, it's just so much pressure cooker. It's such good TV.
Especially those second attempts. Like, those second attempts, you miss it on it, like, especially squat. You miss it on depth. Do you redo it, or you jumping?
Or do you tell yourself, look, I redo this, and everyone hits their third, I'm not going to win anyways. So, screw it. Let's act like I got it, because if I don't get my third, I'm out of the race anyways. So what's the sense? It's one of those deals where, and your handler could, if someone has a deal where they're making a little money off it, they'll be like, yo, you're going for a third. You're good. You're good. You could bail on the second. You're good. Get up. Let's go, champ. Right?
So rhetorically, like that's a great question. I don't know the answer because it's going to be different in every situation.
Yeah.
For me, Jacob's making calls. I'm not going to think about it. And so my job is to make whatever he calls. And so to kind of deal with that type of situation, what I do, a lot of people visualize their lifts and stuff to kind of help them mentally prepare for a competition.
Yeah,
I feel like visualizing your lifts makes it really difficult if that situation comes up because you visualize nailing your second. All of a sudden you missed it. Like all this preparation you did is now worthless.
I know.
So and visualize how am I going to respond to adversity, right? If I miss the second lift because I cut it high, how am I going to calm myself down, stay in the moment, and be able to get it back together in time to take a good third attempt?
Have you been in that situation before? Like mentally, have you been in a situation in that where you responded well, or one that you didn't? You're like, fudge, man. Like, what happened?
Oh yeah. So the Arnold, I forget what year it was. It was the only Arnold I did. I think it was 2013. I'd been having trouble with some stuff outside the gym, and I had been mentally dealing with a lot of stress, and so I'd been working on just kind of trying to not get too wrapped up in anything. But I hadn't really prepared for any type of adversity, right? I had been doing that kind of, just don't stress about stuff. You're gonna have a great day. Just go out there and do it. And so I missed my opener. I forget what happened, but I missed my squat opener, and man, I panicked. I just absolutely panicked. And I was so, scared that now I'm going to bomb out that I missed my second, too.
Oh, shit! No!
Oh, God. So, somehow I made my third. I still don't know how that happened.
Did you move up in weight, or what did you do there? Sorry to cut you off. Did you move up in weight or did you stay?
No. Just retook it all three times, even though it's something like 75 pounds or something under what I wanted to hit. Yeah, just retook it. And really, even though the rest of the meet was pretty good, it was fine. I think I went 5 for 6 on bench and deadlift, but that had fucked with my head so much that I was miserable the entire time. So it's tough.
And that's to an extent, that's a kind of experience that you got to feel it yourself. You can read articles about mental toughness preparing. That's the kind of shit that if you haven't lived it, like walking into a U.S. Open, being like, I've been here before. If you do miss something, I've been here before. It's okay. You didn't. Have you ever bombed out?
I've never bombed out. No.
Me neither.
But
me neither. Hey, there you go. It's. I've heard an expression. You're not a powerlifter until you bomb out. Kelly Branton said that. I've been competing 10 years. I haven't bombed out yet. Now I'm watch. I'm water loading and I'm about to bomb out. But hold on a sec. On that note, I gotta go to the washroom real quick. I'm water loading for our Canadian Nationals. Randy's gonna sit in Daddy's seat for a minute, if you don't mind. I'll be back in a sec.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. So, what would you tell new lifters? What would be your best advice you would give new lifters?
I think that the secret when you're a new lifter is to find the balance between getting your technique down and putting in the right amounts of effort. Because what I see a lot of times with new lifters, either they go balls to the wall from day one. They're just smashing weights, but they don't spend any time trying to refine their technique, and it just looks painful. And either two situations there, you could get injured, or you're just going to ingrain these poor habits so deeply that it's very difficult to fix them later on.
That makes
sense. The flip side is those people who get so obsessed with the technique that unless every rep is, beyond textbook perfect, they're not going to increase the weight. They got to redo it until it looks like, it could be art or something. And I think when you get that obsessed with it, you're not able to put in the right amount of effort to keep increasing the weights, to keep gaining. And so finding that balance is pretty difficult. I would say that if you're trying to look for it, you want to make sure that your technique is 80% there at least, if you're going to up the weight. If it's something that's going to cause you to miss a lifting competition, obviously don't increase the weight. But if it's like more or less 80% there, then I think you're good to keep adding the weights. Otherwise, you got to refine your technique until you're getting pretty close, and then every day continue to refine that technique. So you're always searching for that 100%. You're just not letting it hold you back.
Sometimes adding the weight helps you figure out your breakdowns too. That's
absolutely.
So what about what was I going to ask you? Something else there. Your for the new lifters and stuff. What about coaching? Who would you like if you were going out to look for a new coach? Who would it be that you pick for a new coach, or who? How would you go about picking a new coach? I mean to ask.
So I think that online coaching is a little bit limited, and even and this is like saying this as somebody who does online coaching. It's a little bit limited to people who need help with their programming, because even with technique advice, you can only do so much through watching a few videos online, right? And learning to gauge the level of effort that a lifter is putting into an individual workout, that takes a long time. And so I think that if you can get in-person coaching, that makes a huge, huge difference, and you should always favor that over online coaching. That said, you need to find somebody that you can trust 100%, because if you're second-guessing them, if you're tweaking things a little bit and not telling them, all that type of stuff makes it impossible for them to do their job correctly. So really, you're looking for someone who you are confident in, that they have enough knowledge of the sport that they can help you, and that they're going to do things that are in your best interest. And I think those are the only two things that you really need to make sure. Oh, and you can afford them, I guess. Those are the only things that you need to make sure that you have, you can work with this coach and benefit from it.
That's a great answer. I'm going to let Ryan sit back in the seat here.
Okay, get up on my chair. So Ben, looking over the survey you came back on, and we're going to put that your survey, those questions which are good, online on our website once we launch it. But one of the things I found interesting is in the future you'd like to try a couple new things. You remember what you'd said?
I want to say bodybuilding was on there.
It was ballet, sir. I got no. No, bodybuilding.
I could teach the scrapped it.
No, bodybuilding, man, which is not a major. Like they go hand in hand. Like my idol, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I freaking love Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was a lot of people don't know he's a powerlifting national champion in Germany, and obviously a bodybuilder. And anyone who sees you. You're bodied up. You look like you're stage ready, right flipping now. So, what do you think in terms of the future? Do you have any plans for it? Or
yeah.
Why is that?
So I definitely have plans for it. I think the reason why is that I think that I've been doing powerlifting for a while, not a long time compared to some of the other people out there, but long enough that I feel like I've gotten pretty close to accomplishing what I want. And in order to move up, I need to move up weight class. I don't think I can stay 181 forever. I'm just I'd be better at 198. And I just don't have enough muscle for that yet. So I think bodybuilding, gaining some muscle, would definitely help my powerlifting. That aside, I think that bodybuilding, it's like, Dave Tate has explained this a lot. It's very different than powerlifting, even though a lot of people think, well, you're just lifting weights in both cases. Learning to activate and train specific muscles, especially the small muscles, is really, really difficult. And, I like learning new things. I like having new experiences. And so that's one way that I can kind of get at that while continuing to push myself really hard. Because I need a break from powerlifting. I've done a lot of meets. I had one planned for February and had some personal stuff come up that I had to pass on it. But that would have made the U.S. Open like my 5th meet in 6 or 7 months or something. So yeah, I think a little break, a long off season, gain some muscle, learn some new things about how to activate all my muscles to the best of their ability. I think that could really benefit from me. And then I'm not gonna lie, like we talked about the money. If you're talking money in strength sports, bodybuilding's where it's at.
Hell yeah, man.
And I have no idea if I can, be successful enough in bodybuilding to win money actually competing. Yeah. But just in terms of getting more exposure, putting myself out there more, it's a faster way than through strength sports right now.
There's no question whether or not you win any major tournaments, the actual exposure, like if you look at some of the like for us in powerlifting, you have like 50,000 followers on Instagram, pretty big. You have 100,000, you're one of the biggest names in the sport. You're in bodybuilding, some of these guys have like 500,000. It's crazy how much exposure.
2 million, some of them are huge.
1 million, 2 million, it's a huge, and you don't gotta necessarily be IFBB pro.
Not at all.
And the doors that open up, if you build a following like that, I know like you're a well-written guy and you have a book. We're going to plug all that as well. But if ever any kind of merchandise and servicing, whatnot, that's if you want to make a living off this, you bodybuild.
Well, you see these bodybuilders. A lot of them are starting to incorporate a lot more of the powerlifting back into it again. Oh, yeah. And I mean, having that powerlifting background, you being on the pro show and then showing big lifts, like you're golden on both ends. Like,
oh, the feather in the cap. Yeah. If you won the U.S. Open, be nuts.
Yeah.
But you've already some of your goals. You said you wanted the all-time total. Is that right? At 198.
I would just like an all-time world record. Like I'd like to get one of those on the board. So one of the great things about the U.S. Open is I have a lot of chances for that, and the squat, deadlift, and total, they're all possibilities. None far guaranteed, but they're all numbers that I think on a perfect day I could hit. And so, even if I don't walk away with the 40K, if I walk away with one of those records, I'll be pretty happy.
And I think there's also, if you win your division, I think you get 5K. I might be off, but I think if you break a world record, you get even more.
Really?
I think so. Yeah.
But I'm gonna hold Gracie to that, even though
because I said, oh shit. She's like, hey, big mouth, you owe Ben $1,000. So, do you know who currently holds those records?
I know Ed Coan has the deadlift record, and
who's he? Is he who's that guy? We're not familiar. Kind of a big name, eh? You're chasing,
not
chasing
Coan,
greatness. Yeah.
I'm thinking about the total record. I know he's not done any meets recently, and I should know his name. I'm just, like I said, I'm not
sure
his name.
Does Ed Coan have one of the records though?
Yeah, he has the all-time deadlift at 181. It's like 792 or something like that.
So how close do you think you are to that? Dude, if you beat Ed Coan's record, that's nuts. We got to have you back on.
Right? I've hit 800 in a meet before at 198, and I've done it several times at the gym. So it just has to be a good day, right? Because again, the gym really doesn't mean anything. It's at the end of the day, you've squatted, you've deadlifted, you've traveled, you've got weight, you're tired. Like, can you put it all together on the platform? And so that's what it's going to come down to. If I have a perfect day, I think I can hit it for sure. If I don't have a perfect day, it's probably not going to be there. But that's what Jacob's for. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it for sure. And in terms of, we're going to give you time to plug some of the stuff because you have a book, you have an ebook, do you have sponsors as well you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I would definitely like to thank Elite FTS and Dave Tate for bringing me on board. They're selling my new ebook. It's called Think Strong. It's a pretty basic programming ebook, but it really covers all of my training philosophy that goes into my powerlifting stuff. And so I think it's on introductory sale right now. I don't know how much it is. It's like $16 or something. But Elite has been just incredible. The team environment, even though I've met very few of the people in person, like the team environment that they kind of cultivate through social media and that type of stuff, just incredible. Yeah. And so I'm really, really grateful to them for everything. And then locally, Tammy Martinez has really helped me out a lot. She works for Kinetics Body Science. She does all of kind of like my massage therapy, all my rehab stuff, and she's made a huge difference in my ability to keep training hard and not get hurt. And Big Tech's Gym has, been so super supportive of me and all my different stuff. They're going to help me out with the bodybuilding. They've been really great with the powerlifting. Just even getting equipment when I needed it. Like they just bought a new Texas squat bar because they're like, "Oh, Ben's going to need a squat bar for me."
Oh shit! No kidding. That's nice.
really grateful to all of them for their help. And obviously Jacob and Dominic, who I've already mentioned before.
And one last question before we let go, we ask everybody. Did you have a question?
No, that was it.
Okay. I know the question is going to be, how would you like to be remembered in terms of when you look back and you're retired?
I guess I would just like to be remembered, period, as somebody that, either did something important for the sport in any aspect, or somebody that helped out other people in the sport. I think being remembered is really cool. Like, it kind of makes you a part of history. And, obviously history is what I'm studying. It's something important to me. And so I think just being remembered itself, as long as it's for a good reason, I'd be happy with that.
Sounds good. Okay, well, listen, Ben, thanks for coming on. I love to have you back, especially after the U.S. Open when you break that all-time record and get that 40K. And
as long as you're not too big for us, with that 40,000.
That's right. That's right. We have you on. You look like fucking Puff Daddy in the '90s, and have a fur coat in gold.
I'll just see that one shirtless.
That's right. Help us with the views, Ben. You're wearing a shirt, for God's sake. But I know. Thanks a lot, man. I mean, you're a great guest. Very humble. Very nice guy.
Yeah, super fun talking with y'all. I'd be happy to do it whenever y'all want. Just shoot me a message and we can get back together.
We'll do it again, buddy. Have a good one.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you.
Oh.
Nice cat. Nice dude.
So well spoken.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously he's going for his doctorate. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, doctrine. But I mean, he's educated and stuff. But he's just well spoken. Like, as a sport, it was pretty neat.
He knows the shit. Yeah.
The one thing about that he said for everyone else that he does have that kinesiology, man. That's pretty awesome to be able to just work around those guys and say, look, these are some levers.
If he's got questions,
man. They
side by side. Hey, man, let me ask you something. And he seems like a student of the game. Obviously, he studies the history of strength, which is a flipping really cool university course. But then he's got these kinesiology students. He seems to know his shit in terms of like the 80s when we were on TV. I say we, like powerlifters were on TV, and freaking Budweiser.
But he said he's a fan of history, right? So I guarantee a guy that's a fan of history, he knows more about this sport than a lot of people will ever know. Like, he's going to look back and he'll know more than a lot of people that live through it. Like,
absolutely, because they're dealing with their present in their life, but he'll know the big scope of it. It'd be like, I knew we were on TV at one point. I remember talking to when I commentated for the IPF Worlds. And I did commentary with Kaz. If I'm just name dropping the shit out of us right now, but and he was talking about like back in the 80s when he was a powerlifter first. Kaz was before he went to strongman, and they were on TV. They were on like all that, and there was like major sponsors involved. You almost forget about that because there was like almost like a dark period, and not You
say almost forgot. There's a lot of people that never knew.
Yeah, no, for real. For sure. And there's still some footage. I think Ed Coan's time, it was still on TV as well, because I think he talks about it sometimes in interviews. But if we could return to being on TV, that'd be amazing.
But some of that stuff, when you start seeing the live streaming and stuff like that, because I mean, when it was on TV, it depends on who picked it up. I mean, it could have been a local channel, it could have been whatever. I mean, it wasn't always the big names that picked it up, but the live streaming gives you access from anywhere in the world, which is kind of cool now. You don't have to be sitting in front of a TV.
Time zone free. If you upload it on YouTube, it happens live in North America. And you could be in Australia, and once it's on YouTube, you could watch it, whatever. So it's kind of it's archived. That way, if it's on YouTube and stuff, and you reach, it can stretch to, not with the constraints of a TV slot is 2 hours. We've allotted you 2 hours. Oh shit. Well, we can only have 4 or 5 guys. And we have to streamline. Maybe in the 80s, when there wasn't maybe as many competitors, now we're so deep in terms of women's, terms like masters, and the people watch the juniors. It's hours for 2 weeks straight, so it's a little more difficult to slot it like that. So you could actually have on YouTube live stream, etc. I mean, you could go as long as you need to, as long as you want.
Well, the thing is, I think eventually you're going to start seeing this getting broken down more, whether it's the juniors, the opens, the masters, or maybe juniors and masters
get too
together,
big to handle otherwise.
And the opens separate, because the open range is 17 years. That's a lot of.
Mm-hmm. And then you could have juniors and masters going in the open, even more inflating it. The open is really where the big dogs play. You're a junior Hack, and you think, I think I can win. And you'll go in even as a junior in the open. You're we have tons of masters who are especially in the women's, men's too, who are killing it as well. So I think at some point, and I like what the USAPL is doing with the prime time, where they're we're going to trim the fat. If you have X amount of Wilks going in this, you make what we call prime time, so it moves quicker. And then people, they position it so it's in prime time viewing, like 6, 7 o'clock, so everyone's going to be paying attention. I think that might help. We're moving, right? As a sport, we're kind of cultivating, how do we make this more entertaining?
Well, they can do, I mean, live streaming is always going to be there, so it's easy for them to do now. If they start breaking it down a little bit, I think a lot of lifters only watch certain lifters too. I mean, there's enthusiasts of the sport that'll watch the whole damn thing, but let's be honest, there's a lot of people that if you're an 83, a 93, a 105, you're probably watching those guys. Maybe a group below, a group above. You may watch a junior, see who's up and coming. You may watch the masters and that, but you're probably not watching another damn thing on there, like or maybe a couple people you really want to see, like Big Ray or something like that, you know. But those are some of the things.
Maybe like for instance, invitationals, where you completely trim the fat. Look, if you weren't invited, you're not showing up, and we just have the big names involved. And it's like a UFC. It's like, look, you can be on the main card if you're a big enough name, and you're going to put butts in seats, or you're going to have people viewing. If not, if it starts moving in terms of money, that's what happens. If it's in terms of qualification, and we don't give a shit if you got a big name or not, that's what happens. It's just hit your numbers.
Well, it'd be interesting as technology goes. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but what if you're able to sign in? Say you want to watch a meet, and you can sign on your name, and you just sign on the weight categories you want to see, and like everyone has a smartphone, cues you, let you know your 83's up. You know what I mean? Like you're not sitting in front of the TV all day, because I mean, let's face it, some of these things get stalled so bad.
It's a little much, and it's a little bit long of a day. And I'm a powerlifting enthusiast, like we said, and sometimes watching it, by the time dead rolls around, you're starting to lose a little flavor for it.
Well, not only that, I mean, sometimes you just see some of these meets get staggered so bad. I mean, like 3 hours off where they're supposed to be and stuff.
Yeah. So strict timelines, very well said.
It's pretty good though that he's going to, if he does transition into the bodybuilding. I mean, that guy is.
Oh, it's gonna blow him up.
That guy aesthetically, I mean.
Yeah. He's a dime piece. I wouldn't put him in the same room as my girl or my mother. You know what I'm saying? Or you, for that matter.
Probably not.
Or I wouldn't even trust myself if I was drunk. Okay, there we go. This is it. Anyways, we're gonna get going. Thanks for coming in. Wow.